According to new audio obtained by The Intercept, American defense contractors are talking about the benefits, yes, the benefits of endless wars in the Middle East. Now, this was, of course, during a Credit Suisse conference in West Palm Beach, where some of these major defense contractors that met were from Raytheon, Oshkosh, and Lockheed Martin. They were there to assure investors that they stand to gain from the escalating conflicts in the Middle East. So what I want to do is I want to play you some of this audio. We've got a couple of clips. I want to play them for you, and then we'll talk about the implications.
Switching to the budget.
Yeah.
Okay, the overall budget, we're getting closer potentially to a 2-year budget deal. I'd like to just ask you your thoughts on that, how that aligns with Lockheed, how the strategic priorities that we're seeing out there that are likely to be in this budget, plus maybe we can throw in some of the recent, perhaps increase in activity in the war, the global war against terrorism, how that might leverage Lockheed's portfolio.
Yeah, so budget-wise, look, I probably sound like just another voice of the chorus of everyone who's come before me here. I mean, our programs are well supported and so forth. I'd encourage you to do your own analysis, take a look. You know what our programs are. Go see what was in the budget. We think we did fare very well, but like I said, I'm probably saying the exact same thing you heard every other person on the stage tell you beforehand. We do think that's the case, and again, you can kind of go verify that yourself. It's great to have that deal done, or at least we think done, and to at least have greater certainty. I think that benefits ourselves. That benefits our ability to put things under contract with our supply chain. It does a lot of goodness in terms of creating stabilization of the business that we like.
It's a lot of goodness. Remember, us selling weapons and planes and guns and bombs, it's a lot of goodness. At least goodness for us. Not so much goodness for the people we're bombing, but hey, there it is. So now, Lockheed Martin executive Vice President Bruce Tanner has also told the conference that his company will see benefits, indirect benefits. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second here. What kind of benefits? Well, the benefits from, look, if you have war, which is obviously going on in the Middle East, it's a huge, unstable region at this point. Well, in order to fight wars, you're going to need weapons. Who's going to supply those weapons? Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Oshkosh, the defense contractors. They're more than happy to supply weapons. So now let's get back to the indirect benefits from this newest war, the civil war in Syria, which now we have gotten involved in.
Some of the activity that you're seeing, we're getting sort of maybe intangibles, not the right word, indirect benefits that may not be readily transparent. But for instance, in theater right now, you've got to kind of knit these pieces together, right? But you look at what's going on with Syria and with Russia now having flying activities in Syria, the shoot down of the Russian aircraft by the Turkish Air Force, therefore bringing back into Syria, surface-to-air missile capabilities from the Russians. That makes Syria an incredibly dangerous place to fly. And who is flying a lot of those missions in Syria? The U.S. military. The U.S. military doesn't like to have pilots in harm's way without the ability to bring those pilots home safely. What that says is we're using the F-22s a lot more in Syria than probably people expected. What does that mean to Lockheed Martin? We're now supporting the F-22s with a lot more sustainment activity than we'd had expected. So there's sort of an intangible lift because of the dynamics of that environment and our products in theater that we hadn't necessarily expected to see because of just the escalation of what's going on there.
So an escalation means that they now have more support. They have to provide more support for the F-22s. Well, that means they sell more equipment. They get more profit. As the conflict escalates, especially now that Russia and Turkey, as they had pointed out, are sort of getting into it, well, that's going to increase arms sales, because what we're seeing is now Russia apparently putting in more surface-to-air missiles. Well, our pilots that are doing sorties, well, they want to make sure that they can't get targeted by these surface-to-air missiles. So they're going to need better defenses, stuff like that. It's going to equal more sales for Lockheed Martin and support for the F-22, as well as the new F-35. Now remember, all of this is in the context of sale and support for our bombers that are bombing people at this moment. And now the last piece of audio has Bruce Tanner once again talking about something about expendable products, right? What are expendable products? Well, there are things like missiles, right? And how their customer base isn't just the United States, but now it's going to be expanded because of all the conflict in the Middle East. Take a listen.
Actually, as you're saying this, I'm like thinking ahead to the next earnings release and the color that you put in for the various segments, and thinking in higher than expected F-22 sustainment activity. We'll probably see something like that at some point during the year.
You know, the question is how much. Is it large enough to be spoken when we're seeing double-digit growth in F-35 production?
Yeah.
I'll guarantee you the F-35 double-digit production is bigger than the F-22.
Right.
But relative. And so the other piece, part of your question was, just the engagement, the OCO sort of stuff. We are seeing that. So some of our expendable products like Hellfire missiles, like ATACMS, the tactical missiles, we are starting to see HIMARS as a good example where, some of the land forces, and this is not just the U.S. government, but this is, UAE, Saudi forces, the activity in Yemen is contributing incrementally there, higher than even when I spoke in the last call in October.
So all of this, Saudi Arabia and the UAE now buying weapons, well, it showed an increase to their profits. Now, remember, because of sequestration here in America, we've cut money to defense contractors, to the Pentagon. But fortunately for them, they've actually gotten a lot of that money restored. In fact, there was something on here from that article from The Intercept, written by Lee Fang, who brought this, of course, audio to our attention. The last bit of good news for the contractors, he writes, is the latest budget deal in Congress. Remember, that was the first audio clip that he was talking about. After years of cuts following the budget sequester, the deal offers $607 billion in defense spending. That's just $5 billion less than the Pentagon's request. So they asked for $612 billion. Oh, they only got $607. Oh, sad day. It's just a little bit less. This is what Defense News calls a treat for the industry. How did they get this treat? Well, according to the Center for Responsive Politics, in 2015, the industry lobbied about, and this is just for the defense aerospace budget, $56 million in lobbying on behalf of the defense aerospace. It's not even counting the $21 million in defense electronics, some of which I think would be going to the F-22s operating in Syria. That's what you get. And see, we were warned about this. We were warned about this a long time ago. Eisenhower warned us about this by saying that we should be warned against the military-industrial complex. He said, in the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals so that security and liberty may prosper together. But unfortunately, that is not happening. Unfortunately, what we have now is war for profit. We have these profitable industries According to data compiled by the Mercatus Center, citing the Congressional Research Service, the cost on the global war on terror has reached $1.6 trillion as of fiscal year 2014. And when war funding approved by Congress for 2015 is taken into account, the total reaches $1.7 trillion. And a lot of that, a significant chunk, goes to defense contractors in their profits. Profits for war. This is what we have. We have a system of war profiteering. And they look at everything going on in the Middle East, which used to be stable until we launched an unprovoked invasion into Iraq. It used to be stable, now it's unstable, and now they look at that as a business opportunity. And that, I think, is the most disturbing thing about all of this.